After the Apples is a fable about a fox mother and her kit living in the aftermath of trauma. On the surface, that trauma has to do with an encounter with a rabid fox, or rapid fox as they think of it, but that's the old trauma. The new trauma, the trauma of the story, is actually in the imperfect way that the mother, Widow Wit, is trying to manage her trauma, manage her pain. She eats these fermented apples on the edge of the woods, and they change the way that she behaves. So it's actually a story about alcoholism. I wanted to write a story, though, that did more than just demonize alcoholics. I wanted to get at the amount of love that family members can feel for this person who hurts them sometimes, because when that person is sober, there is nothing that they wouldn't do for the people they love. I think the story does succeed in showing both the love and the grief of that, and how complex that is. And I think it does show how hard people try for one another. So in the passage I've chosen, Antiphone, the kit, the daughter fox, has just gone to get more apples for her mother because her mother's in pain. And on her way, she met these butterflies, so when she returns, she and her mother get to talking about flying and how great it would be to be able to fly. Can you imagine being able to fly? Widow Wit asked. If only I were light enough, I would love to fly. She cringed, her eyes shifting to the apple chunks. I'll make you wings, Antiphone said, rolling back onto her little feet. Then you can fly. Then you won't hurt. Widow Wit swallowed the piece of apple that was on her tongue. Oh, kiddo, that's sweet. But what will you use to make them? This Antiphone had to give some thought. It would be rude to steal the wings of Schmetterling and Psyche. What else was there to help a fox to fly? Rocks were too heavy, grass was too thin, and leaves wouldn't work because they were always falling down. She had no idea what wings were made of, if not any of these things. Perhaps they were not made. Perhaps they grew, like Antiphone herself. She knew she would not always be small, and that this was because she was swift and ate her dinners. Maybe you've got to eat differently if you're to have wings, Mum, she said. What are you trying to say? Widow Wit snapped. She had been on the verge of eating the final chunk of decomposing apple. Antiphone cowered. I meant you should eat what the birds do to grow wings, she said, her tongue catching in her teeth. I wasn't saying no apples, she whispered when her mother only stared at her, adding in the littlest voice yet, I brought them for you. Yes, Widow Wit said, her shoulders tense. Right. Rude, Antiphone scolded herself. I'm rude. I'm sorry, kiddo, Widow Wit said then, and it was in her bedtime voice, a velvet one. Tell me what we should do. What? To get me wings. The warm glow had returned to her eyes. What should I eat? Eager to have the answer, Antiphone thought. Birds ate seeds. She had seen plenty of seeds in her short life, but she had never gone looking for them. There was no one place that seeds went to or came from or traveled by. To make any sort of progress, growing a whole pair of fresh wings would require a lot of wing food. Birds also ate nectar, honey, pollen, and all of those things came from flowers. In the forest, though, flowers were just as rare as... A memory intruded then, a golden one, and Antiphone knew exactly where to go. Do you remember the meadow, Mum? She asked. With all the different colors? She had meant to say all the different colored flowers, but in Antiphane's memory nothing was so distinct. She saw strands of bronze and rust swaying, and a sky beyond of grapefruit bleeding into creamy orange with gauzy clouds to staunch the flow. And those sunset-gilded stems had worn around their heads collars of every color. Some were long and pointy and yellow or powder blue. Some were ruffled and had deep, rich furrows of ruby or amethyst. Others still had wide, pillowed panels that were thick, gentle white. She could hear peals of happiness, as if a younger Antiphone laughed and played just slightly to the left or right and several months away. "Yes, I do remember," Widow Witt said. She grimaced. "It's an awfully long walk." "Oh." Antiphane's ears sank. Of course it had been before her memory, before her mother's injury. "That's okay," she said. But Widow Witt said, "No, wait." She fixed her daughter with a look of defiance that even Antiphone understood was not directed at her. Rather, it was for her. It was her mother's "for you I'd run forever" face. "I can make it," she said. Antiphone leapt up, barking for joy. "Just wait here a moment. I'm going to have some more apples," Widow Witt said. Antiphane's lips wilted. Her mother soothed, "Don't feel badly. What I'll need for a real day trip is more than anybody could carry." "Thank you."